Welcome to the Invested Dads Podcast, simplifying financial topics so that you can take action and make your financial situation better. Helping you to understand the current world of financial planning and investments, here are your hosts, Josh Robb and Austin Wilson.
All right. Hey. Welcome back to the Invested Dads Podcast, a podcast where we take you on a journey to better your financial future. Today, we are going to be throwing down. It is the Unofficial-Official iPhone versus Android boxing match everyone has been waiting for. Ladies
and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
All right, I think we are ready to rumble. Gets me pumped up. But honestly, when I think about Android versus iPhone, it reminds me of, you remember those commercials? Hello, I'm a Mac. Hi, I'm a PC. You know what I'm talking about there? There was those two guys standing there that represented
I
them.
do. Those were like a big thing about, 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it
I'm a Mac.
dates how old I am.
I'm a PC.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking about, is like two different things, and people have their strong opinions on one or the other.
Very strong.
Yes.
And there's not many people who are like in both camps.
Yeah.
It's very polarizing.
other.
It's a
One or
lot
the
like America.
Sure.
So yes, it is Android versus iPhone, and today we're going to specifically be focusing on the phone side of
Yes.
things. We could talk for weeks about computers and tablets and whatnot, but this is specifically talking about iPhones, and we've got some numbers for you.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers might shock you. And then we've got some opinions
Yes.
because, okay, we're going to get this
Unbiased
started.
opinions.
But we're going to get this started by saying that Austin is team iPhone
Yes.
all the way, and Josh is team Android all the way. Or he's just are you just anti-iPhone?
No, I like my. I like
Have you
my
ever had a
Android
Windows phone?
I have owned
And
a Windows
how bad
phone.
did that was? How bad
Actually, it
was
was one of my favorite operating systems. The apps were horrible. They just did
because
not
they probably didn't have any
apps.
support.
No,
yeah,
they had zero. But from an operation standpoint, and for what I used it for, the integration was awesome. Like I loved it.
Words with Friends.
Words with
That's what you use.
Yes, it's all,
Or you had to find extra people to play with because
Yeah,
you don't
there
have
was
any
no
friends. Yeah,
But what it had was syncing or integrating with my Office software.
back then it was hard. I'm sure. Now everything integrates really well.
But back then that phone, it literally I could just set it down with my PC, plug it in, and all my data, the spreadsheets, all that stuff.
Bill
was
Gates would be
interchangeable.
so proud.
Oh, so great.
Now that was a very short-lived time frame.
It was. I
And
had a
Android has since taken your heart.
Yep.
And you are an Android lover, despite the fact that I give you a hard time probably daily.
Yep.
And most of the office, actually. Are you the only non-iPhone user in our office?
I believe so.
I think
do.
you are.
Now, I will say, so from that standpoint, we're going to talk about this, my operating system is Android. I am not really brand loyal to the phone maker.
Right.
So the Microsoft one was not an Android, but I've had, let's see here.
Obviously, Samsung.
Samsung is what I currently have. I've had
Motorola.
a couple of Motorola's.
Huawei?
I don't know what that is.
That's that Chinese
okay.
company that got banned.
Okay. No, Motorola. I've had some Samsung. I'm trying to think. I had one other one for a while.
LG,
that I liked.
maybe?
LG, yes. I did have a couple LG. And then I have a couple friends who've had the Pixel and the Google
Pixel.
phones. And so they really like those. And the times I've used them, I thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
See, I'm the opposite. I am extremely brand loyal in all aspects of life.
Yes.
So this is where I get to be the way I am.
Yes.
And I want to preface this by saying I used to be an Android user.
Yeah.
So I used to be a part of the dark side before the Force got me, and I came to the lightsaber. See, that was a lot of Star Wars puns.
That was
all
totally
at
messed
once.
up there.
All at once.
Yes.
All at once. So, yeah, when my first smartphone in college, they were not very smart back then, but they were still a smartphone. It was an Android, a Motorola Razr
Oh, yeah. The
Max
Razors. Oh, yeah.
with the big battery, and it's carbon fiber. It was sweet. And then the screen shattered on me because it fell out of my pocket or something. So then I ended up with a cheap Android phone that I used for a while until I got a good deal on an iPhone 4S. Oh, and that thing took my heart.
Yes.
Took my heart, and it's been no turning back since then.
There you go.
So let's talk numbers. In 2020, because that's the last full year we have, and I'm going to link a Visual Capitalist article in the show notes that kind of breaks this down. But Samsung was the leader. Samsung sold 19 or commanded 19% of the market share of new phones in 2020. with 253 million units sold. That's a lot of units sold, about 250 million. But that's actually down 14.6% from 2019. Now, that's not totally surprising considering there was a pandemic in the middle of all of that.
And release cycles, too.
True.
I know this year they released a couple. They had their new Note 20 or whatever came out, and I think their new Galaxy one came out in 2021.
Yep.
So I think they were in between market release dates because Apple's the same way. You kind of go in spurts.
So second, speaking of Apple, Apple is in second as of 2020 in terms of new phone purchases. 15% of the new phone purchases in 2020 were Apple products, and that was 200 million units, representing an actual 3.3% growth from 2019. So it did grow. In third place is Huawei, which is the Chinese company I mentioned earlier. They were essentially banned from United States anyway on national security concerns a couple years ago. They had 14% of global smartphone sales in 2020 with 183 million units, and that was down 24% versus 2019 due to that ban.
Yeah. So they're pretty popular overseas.
Oh, yeah, and especially in China, which is a huge market. In fourth place, I don't know how to say it, Xiaomi. It starts with an X.
Sure.
They command 11% of 2020 sales, 146 million units, 15.7% growth from 2019. Oppo is in fifth place with 8% and 112 million units, down 6%-ish from the year before. And there's a big bunch of other, because there's a lot of small smartphone makers, and that's about a third or 33% of the overall smartphone market
Google
in 2020.
Would fall in there.
Google would have fallen in there. 455 million other, and that's down 20% from the year before. So total smartphone sales in 2020 were 1.35 billion units, and that was down 12.5% from 2019. So that's globally. But
BlackBerry, where's BlackBerry?
I mean, I bet if you would have run this 10 years ago,
Oh, it was huge.
BlackBerry was huge. They would have been
I
in
had
the top
one.
handful. Did you?
Well, years ago.
Jenna did too, and
I liked it.
I never had one.
It had the full keyboard. That was
Keyboards
the one
and
thing about
everything.
it.
Yeah, but in the U.S., Apple controls 50% of the smartphone market in the U.S., but globally, it only controls about 15%. So big difference here versus the rest of the world. China is expected to see the most sales in 2021, but the highest growth areas are actually projected to be in Western Europe, Latin America, and more mature markets in the Asia Pacific. Another article that I'll link in the show notes from a website called Magnify, they said 91% of U.S. households own smartphones and use them a lot, and approximately half of global web traffic is mobile now.
That surprises me. That's crazy.
That is crazy. And there are more than 3 billion smartphone users worldwide, and the market is expected to grow by several hundred million over the next few years. So it's still growing.
That is.
Especially as more economies develop and mature, that's becoming a more prevalent part of their economies.
It seems like, too, there's a big push to get internet access to the harder hit areas and more, rural. Well, with cell phone coverage, it's a little easier to get those out than to run the lines for internet. And so I think I see that being an opportunity that you could use that as a way of getting that access to farther places quicker.
And so the global smartphone market was worth about $715 billion in 2020 and is expected to surpass $1 trillion by 2026.
Wow.
That's trillion with a T. That's a big number. All right. So we're going to do our dad joke now.
Yes. Before we
get into our opinions.
Like each other during the dad joke.
So I can laugh at you without, getting
laughing at me. All right. So we're talking technology. We're talking internet. Do you know how trees get on the internet?
Nope.
They log in.
They log in.
That's how they get on the internet.
Classic, Josh. Good job. Good job. So now is what everyone's been waiting for. This is when Josh and I are going to talk about our preferences on smartphones. So, yes, I prefaced it by saying I'm an iPhone user. I don't see myself ever having an Android. So each of us are going, and you probably are kind of tied to the other side of the page there. Let's talk about 5 things that we like about our current preference and 5 things that we think need some improvement. Yeah. And I know you had trouble coming up with 5 things that needed improvement.
Yeah. I did
You're really digging.
Maybe a couple more phone color choices.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm going to start. Here are 5 things I like about my iPhone.
Yes.
Feel free to chime in and make comments on them because you might hate them. Number 1, I feel like Apple's software is fantastic to use.
Sure.
Josh says no.
I will agree, though. and this is one of the ones, is if you found the first iPhone, if it still works and can charge or whatever, that layout is the exact same as what you're going to look at in the iPhone 13 for the most part, right? It's very consistent. So there's no learning curve if I upgrade my phone to, oh no, where did everything go? It's in the same spot. And that is pretty nice. I will agree.
It is absolutely great. It's very intuitive to me because I'm used to it, and it's similar across devices. So I'm sitting here on an iPad reading notes. It's similar as my iPhone.
Yep.
Josh is reading his notes on an iPad.
I do have an iPad.
But that's a work iPad, so it's not his jam. But anyway, I also am going to tag on as a 1A that the backup function. So when you use iCloud backup to back up your phone and you set it up to automatically do it every night or whatever, the minute you get a brand new iPhone in the mail or whatever, you just log in with your Apple ID and it restores your phone exactly as your old one was. All the apps are in the same place. All the data is the same. Everything is the same. I'm sure Android can't be even anywhere close to that.
They do have, but I will tell you, the layout doesn't stay the same because.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like, if I have my apps here or there, it loads them all in, and all my settings get pulled in, and all my contacts and all this stuff. But then I have to reorganize my screen. So yeah, you're right.
So that should be one of your 5 things you dislike. Because it's great. All my folders are the same. Everything's the same. So that's number 1. Number 2, the continuity of the software across Apple devices, I believe, is perfection. So handoff is something you can do where you hand something off from your phone to your iPad. It's really easy to do. Sidecar is a way that you can use your iPad as an auxiliary monitor to your Mac.
Oh, wow.
And you can actually use multiple. So like I have a personal iPad and I have a work iPad and I have a Mac at home. So if I'm working on my Mac, I can sidecar both of my iPads as 3-screen monitors. And it's super cool. iCloud syncing, I think, is actual magic. It just syncs everything and every setting across all your devices, all your notes, all your messages, everything. I like that a lot. All the switches and buttons, everything's great. AirPlay is another one I love. So that's what number 2 is, continuity software. Number 3, I feel quality when I hold an iPhone or an iPad. You know, from unpacking it, the packaging is beautiful. Oh, yeah. And like as a nerd, when I get a new product, which they last a long time, so I don't get that many. But when I do, I'm like nerding out when I'm unpackaging the package. Oh, yeah. It's just wonderful. And I keep the boxes and everything. Oh, yeah. Because they have good resale value.
The boxes?
No, the actual products. Oh. But I feel like it improves the resale value if you have the box with it. So that's great. I feel like the clicks and switches and everything that you touch just feels really crisp. And to me, other people disagree, but to me it feels like it earns the premium price because they're definitely expensive. All Apple products are expensive. Number 4, I really like iMessage and FaceTime. So when I come across people that I have to text who are Android users, Josh,
like me,
and you have to green text.
I never understood what that was.
Oh, it's horrible. You feel like you're texting
green
like
and blue or like the thing.
You feel like you're texting some archaic landline.
What's different?
It's you don't see the little blue dots or you don't see the dots when someone's typing.
Yeah, security. That's what.
Yeah, it's just craziness. So I really like that. And group messaging is super smooth and super nice, and you can send all kinds of stuff smoothly with iPhones to each other. Video calling. So like I don't have another option on my phone because by choice, but to video call someone on an Android because why would I shun those people. No, I just find myself reaching for FaceTime, and I know the people that I've talked to recently on FaceTime, it's usually family, they're iPhone users, so it's super easy to do, and it's same across my phone, my iPad, my Mac, it all works easily. That's just the only way. Number 5, and there are more than 5 things that I like, but this is the number 5 thing. I really feel like Apple products last a long time. So I typically keep an iPhone until it stops getting software updates, which can actually be many, many years at this point, and they hold their resale and trade-in value very well. So I like that. All of these pros, they actually extend beyond iPhone to, I have an Apple Watch, and I love that, and iPads and Macs are the same way. So lots of things I like, but those are 5. Josh, tell me why in the world you like an Android.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned early on when you were talking about the phone sales, there is one company that makes iPhones, Apple. There are multiple companies that make phones that use the Android operating system. So from that standpoint, one of the things I do like about the Android is that there's choices. And so from price level points to features to all the stuff, you do have a lot more options. Sizes, everything you can think of. because a lot of different companies make the phone that the Android is on,
Right.
you just have a variety of choices. So that's one I do like. So, for instance, mine is a Note, and so it has a little stylus. I like that. That's what I chose because I like to take notes on that. And so, I just have choices on where to go with that. So that's one. I like the options. 2, USB-C. So charging. I mean, I can understand you want to be your own unique person, but your iPad, or maybe I should say yours is a little older, new iPads use USB-C.
Oh, I know.
Everything else in the world uses USB-C, except for the iPhone. I would have bet money that the new iPhone would have switched to the USB-C.
Oh, I would have too. Now I'm thinking it has to be the next one, which is iPhone 14.
Yeah, in like
next
2 years.
next fall.
Yeah. So the USB-C, it's compatible. I can bring one cable with me, and it charges all my devices, which is nice. So that is one thing I like. Here's one thing, and again, talking about the software, is customizable. There is a little more flexibility in the Android operating system than you have in an iPhone, and that could be good and bad depending on what you're doing. But one of the things I do like is I can have on my main screen, my home screen, shortcuts to anything. Now, you can have apps on there. I can actually bookmark a web page and put it on my home screen. And I've used that. So, for instance, I was at a conference and that had my schedule, but it was on a website. The schedule was on a website, which is dumb, but that's what I needed. So I bookmarked that to my home screen so I could always click it and look at what's coming up. So flexibility there, customization, a lot of the actual underlying software on my Android, I can customize layouts and all that stuff a little more flexible than an iPhone.
Yep.
Expandable memory. Now, as they got more waterproof, some of this has gone away to some phones, but a lot of Androids still have the ability to expand your memory, right? You could put in those little memory cards, SD cards, and double your memory for cheap. And so that is, to me, a benefit, is especially as people are using their phones more and more, to be able to increase your memory if needed.
Right.
And so that to me is a benefit. And then the last one, and this is debatable because it all depends on what you look at.
Yep.
But again, with the options of phones and all the stuff, there is, comparing hardware, you have a lot more choices.
Oh, yeah.
iPhones, you get about 3 choices, right? You get like the Max and the regular one and the Mini, or for the new releases, right?
And then you've got the Pros.
Yeah. So like you're in there kind of with hardware.
Like 6,
you could choose all over the place, from like a $200 phone to a $1,500 phone.
Yep.
And so there's a website we'll link in the show notes. It compared the 2 flagships, so the new Samsung S21 and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So the 2 high-end, and they're within $100 of each other price-wise.
It's the best,
it's not
quote-unquote, best phones you can buy,
Yeah. So they compared them. The Samsung had double the RAM, larger battery, faster charging, and 8K video shooting.
Okay, so I saw that you put that on your list.
I'm going to caveat that because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to come to it.
Okay.
The processor in the iPhone has a faster processor speed.
Of course.
So I'm not going to say any other.
I am flabbergasted with the statistics of anything that's coming out, like TVs, phones, iPad, cameras.
I didn't even get to this megapixel camera.
No eye can tell the difference between 4K and 8K.
Preaching to the choir here, but 8K video on a phone, that technology just compounds.
It's crazy.
Like you could shoot that on a phone.
I know.
And the iPhone has 4K. So I mean, again, on a screen, 8 inches.
Oh yeah,
like that's irrelevant.
It's really funny. I would think of like 1080 was 10 years ago, and that was the biggest, baddest thing you could film in, and phones couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Big expensive cameras could, and that was a huge step in the right direction visually. But between that and 4K, which is about 4 times the pixels, the human eye cannot discern a lot after 1080, and then 8K is twice that many, and it's just like, at some point,
what do you do?
Our eyes don't work that well.
What you do get is, and a lot of the argument is, the ability to crop zoom without losing quality. So if you're shooting in 8K and you have your picture, but you only want to use a third of that picture, and
it'll be really good.
You're going to get high quality from it. But yeah, you're right.
I'm
watching, camera, and I didn't realize this, the back end camera. So they have 3 for the iPhone,
right?
And this new Samsung is a quad, so it has 4. I don't even know why, but anyway, so it's got 4, but it has 108 megapixel.
That's a lot of megapixel.
Yeah, and it's 12 megapixel for the iPhone, which again, for a phone and you're taking pictures, you can mount that on your wall. You won't see any problem with it.
It's only 12 megapixels.
That's what it was listed online. Now, the front facing is also 12, so it's the same quality. But the front facing for the Samsung is 40 meg. Again, it's irrelevant at some point, the
Right.
quality on all those. So
That is
long
those
story
are
short,
crazy.
variety was my big one for all that.
It's true, but one of the funny going back to the
I know, crazy.
8K, 4K, whatever. I'm sitting in my living room and I have a 7-year-old TV. It's 1080. It's great. I think it has a great picture. It does not matter if my TV is 8K or 1080 or 720. I'm watching Frasier from the 90s.
They didn't shoot that.
They didn't shoot that in 8K, so it's irrelevant. Yeah. Okay, so we had to say it at some point, but here we come to things we don't like.
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect. I'll even admit that as an iPhone user. Okay, number one, and it goes to one of your pros. Where the heck is the USB-C charging?
Yes.
Lightning was good. It was a step above the 30 pin that it replaced,
Yeah,
right?
dumb.
That was really bad. But USB-C, come on. Everyone needs USB-C. It's faster. It's better. It's more durable.
I feel like those
It's
Lightning ones
universal.
broke a lot too.
Yeah,
Are you
I
in the
go
same
through-
boat?
I go
and
through
again,
them
I don't
all
own
the time.
iPhones, but my wife does, and I just feel like those broke. I have a pile of my old Android chargers back when they had those old pin ones, and they're still sitting there. I got to just throw them all out. But she breaks those Lightning, and I don't know if it was just her being rough on it or in general, but when I was looking it up, that was
I would say both.
complaint.
Probably. They aren't. I think they do break and disintegrate over time. One of the things that people complain about is then Apple went to like green plastic, like it was more environmentally friendly a handful of years ago. And since they did that, their plastic has been deteriorating more on their chargers.
heat and-
I have chargers last for years and years, typically as long as the phone. But my wife, Jenna, if you're listening, I love you, but you do not place your phone at an angle typically that is good for the cords. If you like have any kink in them, it's no bueno. So that is a problem.
Charger.
So
Yeah.
yes, USB-C charging I think should be universal. It's good. We're headed there. We really are.
I've always just been a fan of universal across. I mean, it just so you need to borrow. So Google, I think, was the first one to come out with USB-C. And so I had a Samsung, and someone at church was like, "Hey, my phone's almost dead. Can I use it?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a charger in the car." And they said, "I can't use it." And sure enough, I think they had a USB-C, which was one of the first ones I think to use it, and they couldn't use my charger. And I just think universal charging is huge.
It's just like electric vehicles. It's just like gas pumps. Like we all need
them to work.
Just work. Yeah. And that sounds a little socialist. Like Europe is trying to force the USB-C thing. I think they're kind of inadvertently going to get their way unless Apple skips USB-C altogether and just goes to wireless.
Oh, wireless.
It's just going to go wireless.
Yeah. But you still need a port. How are you going to get your headphones?
They're going to make you not, because then they make you buy an AirPods. Okay, so number 2. Why the heck do we still have glass screens? This really goes for all smartphones, but it is a major problem with iPhones as well. Glass screens, glass breaks.
Yes.
You drop your phone,
boom.
It doesn't always, but it can break. One of our coworkers just dropped her phone, broke the front and the back.
Yes.
Recently, and I'm like, we should be having other options other than glass screens for all smartphones, but iPhone specifically. Number 3 links to that. Glass backs.
Yeah, what
now,
the crap?
Glass backs are required as opposed to a metal back. iPhones used to have metal backs. Now, with wireless charging capabilities, you need to have glass backs.
I don't think so.
Is this your plastic?
I don't know what that is.
That's plastic. Yeah. You can't have metal, though.
Yeah, can metal.
Metal, anything but metal. Well, iPhone, instead of going to plastic, went to glass, which breaks.
Yes. Unless you find a new glass that doesn't
Stop making phones of glass. Oh, it drives me crazy. Number 4, no support for Apple products, like software-wise, on PC.
Yep.
Like, I wouldn't say none. You can get iCloud linked to your PC, and I use that all the time, and I do think it works pretty well. But like iMessage and FaceTime. Like on my Mac at home, I can iMessage people or message anyone, even with Androids or whatever, no problem. But it's linked to my phone. It's all the same. I can FaceTime anyone, the same on my computer as on my phone. It'd be really nice if that same software was available on a PC. Number 5, this is where you're probably going to have an edge on me. Battery life should be easy, full day. You should be able to use your phone and watch video for 24 hours.
Yep.
Like,
I mean, there's no technology advancements.
We should be there.
Yep.
Now, I know that there's always cost parities involved, but I think that you should easily be able to have all-day battery life nowadays. And I'm not there. Now, I have an iPhone SE2, so it was like a year old. It was like the hot rod of the phones when it came out. Biggest processor, but with like an old-school body.
Yep.
And I still have to charge it in the middle of the day, and I don't even use it.
Yeah.
Like, usually it's running to a low point, like 20-ish% by the time work's over. So I charge on the way home, but I only have a 3-minute commute, so it like doesn't
get a 2%.
get a couple extra percent out of it, maybe. But I really think we need to have battery life as an all-day, no negotiable
using
thing.
it. Yeah, not just
With
sitting
using
there.
it. Yes, not standby. So those are my 5 things. Like I said, it's not perfect. iPhones aren't perfect. But Josh, what are 5 things you hate about Android?
And my first one goes along with what you said. The interaction between Androids and other phones are just not ideal. And so whether it's, I don't know which end it is, I'm assuming, because my wife will try to send me a video and I get it the size of like a pea that shows up on my screen and I can't enlarge it. It's low quality and it's through the message, and she sends it to me and another iPhone user. They're fine. I don't know. So it's got to be something that I'm getting. I don't know. So low quality, don't like it. Goes along with also interaction with iPhone FaceTime. I wish there was a way that you could accept FaceTime on Android phone, because that would be nice to communicate, because there's other apps out there, but that's, again, universally accepted one would be nice. And I think there was movement towards that. I know Facebook Messenger now you can communicate between different devices on Facebook Messenger video call. So
Microsoft Teams is another way.
Yep.
People are using that mobily.
I think a lot more people have like a Facebook Messenger, so as like a compatible, like they probably already have it on their phone.
Yep.
But anyway, so that's one. That the family, the network, I don't know what you call the iPhone web of integration with everything. That is nice. And the fact that multiple companies make Android phones makes it harder for it to communicate between different types of devices. So I have a Samsung, and then I have a Windows computer. Although they're closer in operating systems, they don't always work seamlessly. And so, the idea that, like you said, Apple has, between a Mac and an iPad and an iPhone, they're all integrated and communicate seamlessly.
What if you had a Chromebook?
Probably. If I had a Google phone, that would probably communicate pretty well.
Pixel on a Chromebook,
if I use the Google web browser, Chrome, it does sync between places.
And
like
that was something that, I don't want to hijack your things here, but I have recently, for continuity between PC and Mac and iPhone or whatever, I have ventured away from some of the native Apple services. So like, I don't use the Apple Mail like I used to for my email. I use Outlook. Because I can use Outlook on my PC at work, I can use Outlook on my Mac at home, and I can use Outlook on my iPhone. The same thing goes for Chrome. I like the Chrome browser, especially on a PC. I think it's awesome. And I like how everything is saved in terms of favorites, and I've got folders. Well, I've gotten to the point where I transitioned from Safari on my Mac and on my iPhone to using Chrome, because one login and I have all of my favorites, all of my tabs. I can open something on my phone, click the little arrow thing, and open it on my iPad. And it's perfect. So that is one thing about Chrome.
Along with that, by the way.
Oh, it's awesome.
So you had to go into every app that uses Safari and tell it to switch to Chrome.
I changed my default.
But you have to do that per app.
No.
That's okay. So the old iPhones, you actually have to do it per app.
Nope. Now you used to not be able to set Chrome as your default.
Now you can.
Apple had a right or in their software where you just could not. They have now changed it,
so that's good, because I know that was the struggle for a while.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Along with that, though, speaking of apps, usually apps are first to the iPhone. Because most apps are developed in the United States. At least, the ones that we're using are U.S.-based apps. 50% of the marketplace is iPhones. The rest are spread between other. So you usually see those apps first to iPhone. So you sometimes have to wait a little longer on an Android to get some of those, or the updates, those type of things. One thing I hate is pre-installed software. So when you get an Android phone, it is already... So let's say you get one with 256 gigabytes of memory. You get it. You don't get 256 because they got crap on there. And it's usually... So let's say Verizon or AT&T or your carrier, they pre-install their stuff on there. iPhones, they come pretty clean. They really don't have any third party, and they have some Apple stuff. But they don't have any third party. So there's Android stuff, and then there's your carrier stuff.
Oh, really?
So and you can delete them, but you got to go through yourself. You don't get the option ahead of time. So dumb pre-installed stuff drives me nuts. And then the last one is for support technology, the Apple stores, the Genius. What are they called?
The Apple Store, but they do have Genius Bar.
Like so. There's a whole, like if something happens, I know where I'm going. If I have another phone, I either go to where I bought it and hopefully somebody can fix it, or you got to ship it in somewhere. So,
Right.
you got people to call, you got places to go, you got the repair. It's a little more convenient. So those are my 5 things that I came up with.
So the next logical question is, how would we invest in this?
Yes.
Because smartphones are real. They're a very big part of our life, and they're becoming an increasingly large part. So I have some options. First
Again,
of all,
no,
this is not a recommendation, but we're going to get to that part. But yeah, this is not a recommendation. I'm not saying go buy any of these things. Here are some options if you are interested, though, to do further due diligence on or talk to your
Companies
advisor
involved.
about.
Yep.
It's good to be aware. Number one, obviously, you could buy Apple. Apple makes the software and the hardware that makes the iPhone. Number one, biggest company in the world. Well, it was plus or minus with
It's
Microsoft
right there.
lately.
Yeah.
Google, number 2. Obviously, they make Android software. You can also buy Google Pixels and everything that goes along with that. Very big company. Number 3, Samsung. You can buy the stock.
Yeah.
However,
kind of weird.
it's a little weird because it's a Korean company, and finding the ADR or whatever you want to do for that, you have to do your own research on that one. Another one is like component manufacturers. So Qualcomm makes the cell modem chips for really all phones.
Yes.
Skyworks Solutions makes 5G chips as well. American Tower, they do actual cell towers. AT&T and Verizon are obviously companies that do the service. So kind of the whole spectrum of the
NVIDIA,
smartphone
do
there.
they make chips too?
NVIDIA makes chips. A lot of them aren't going into smartphones yet, but I would imagine they're going to be eventually. Those GPUs are the baddest things you can buy. That's just a hot stock.
It's crazy.
Again, not saying buy any of these things.
Yeah.
There are also ETFs. You can invest in ETFs.
Now
and they're
again,
great tickers.
newer ETFs are newer than mutual funds
Oh, yeah.
when it comes to. So there's a lot more options. Did someone capture that? Did they take
Yes,
advantage
they
of
did,
the new?
and they took advantage of a great ticker. And you
we
think that great tickers equal great
Oh, it
ETFs?
does. Always.
The ticker is
Without a doubt.
FONE. Phone.
Phone.
And it is the First Trust smartphone / is kind of transitioning more to a 5G focused ETF. So that's one. Not saying go buy that one, but that's an option.
But love the ticker.
Josh, the question is,
Yes.
should you invest in companies that make or are involved in smartphones?
You know my answer all the time. It depends.
Have a donut.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, have a donut and then think about it. And it depends. Chances are, if you own some sort of diversified portfolio,
Yeah.
you have some exposure to it.
Yeah, if you own like any U.S. large cap fund, ETF, whatever in your retirement,
Apple being a large piece,
it's going to be a
probably
huge,
in there.
a decent sized portion.
So chances are you probably have some exposure without realizing it if you're in a diversified portfolio. But as always, look at your risk tolerance, look at your goals, look at where you're at in life and whether it makes sense to add these type of companies to your portfolio. And always talk to your advisor, and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, or get one if you don't have one.
Yes.
So, yeah, those are some options that you can do. Think about your situation, though. That's the key point there. So, as always, check out our For Gift to You. It's a brief list of 8 principles of timeless investing, overarching investment themes meant to keep you on track to meet your long-term goals. We don't necessarily talk about smartphones, but you could download it on your smartphone.
Yes.
How about that? So, check that out. It's free on our website. Josh, how can people help us grow this podcast?
Yep. Make sure you subscribe. That way, every Thursday, you get our most recent episode sent directly to you.
Every Thursday for over 100 weeks.
Oh, by the way, if you want to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, there you go.
Oh, man.
Austin would appreciate it.
I would.
That helps us rank higher, which helps more people find our podcast there. And then if you have any ideas, thoughts, or if you want to weigh in on which one's better, then shoot us an email, hello@theinvesteddads.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And then last, if you know somebody who is still on the Apple side and he's convinced, share this episode with them and see what happens.
And I'm thinking we need to put like a Twitter poll up.
Yeah, we should.
It's going to happen. All right. Well, until next Thursday, have a great week.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Invested Dads podcast. This episode has ended, but your journey towards a better financial future doesn't have to. Head over to theinvesteddads.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and we had a positive impact on your life, leave us a review, click subscribe, and don't miss the next episode. Josh Robb and Austin Wilson work for Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Josh, Austin, or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. There is no guarantee that the statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. Securities investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment plan or strategy will be successful.